Hey Mavs fans, if you're listening to this, you obviously like podcasts, and you probably like music too. On Spotify, you can listen to all of that in one place for free, and you don't need a premium account. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one that you're listening to now. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcast so you never miss an episode. You can download episodes to listen offline wherever you are, and you can easily share what you're listening to with your friends via Spotify's integrations with social media platforms like Instagram. Just search for The Step Back, a Mavs podcast on the Spotify app, or browse podcasts in the Your Library tab, and follow us so you never miss an episode of The Step Back, a Mavs podcast. Spotify is the world's leading music streaming service, and now it can be your go-to for podcasts too.
Hey, this is Skin Wade, and you're listening to The Step Back, a Badass Name podcast.
I like this, TK. I like that. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk get the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. Look with the ball, yeah, get nasty. He'll drop 30, don't gotta ask him. Got Chris Stapps, coach at the Adam, I spaz like Dallas. I thought I'm rapping, God. If Luka shoot the ball, you know that it's cash. But my boy still looking to pass. Now he got my boy Chris Stapps, looking like Duncan Nash in the gap. They just wanna ring, wanna fill the gap on your team head. I ain't talking hats, dang, go relax. Still at the champs, defense still coming with the cannabis flow. The master.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another edition of The Step Back, a Mavs podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined as always by my co-host and DallasBasketball.com colleague, Matt Galatzan. We're here for a special 4th of July edition of The Step Back. Happy 4th to everybody out there. I hope you've all enjoyed your cookouts or whatever you've been doing today. And even if you've been just glued to your phone waiting for a Danny Green announcement, maybe you've had fun doing that. I don't know, but Matt, how's your 4th been?
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel.
Okay, all right. You know what? I wasn't expecting that. That explains a lot from you today.
I'm not doing well, Dalton. I'm very frustrated. I'm very I really don't even know how to describe my feelings right now, to be honest with you. It's shock, horror, embarrassment, a lot of different things. So,
well, I know everybody on Twitter, Mavs Twitter, has been keeping up with it, but if you haven't, the Mavs, they've just been sitting here waiting for Danny Green to make his decision. They've prioritized Danny Green. He's essentially tied to Kawhi Leonard's hip. If Kawhi goes back to Toronto, our best guess is he will go back to Toronto and try to make a run at a repeat. If Kawhi Leonard goes to the Lakers, that takes away all of their remaining cap space, and you have to figure that Danny Green's not going to go sign with the Lakers for, a veteran minimum contract. So if he goes to the Lakers, that's probably the Mavs' best chance of landing Danny Green. But as of right now, we know that the Mavs, they have the best offer on the table. That could change depending on what happens with Kawhi. If he does decide to go back to Toronto and Danny Green still doesn't stay, the Lakers could potentially offer the same amount or more than what Dallas is willing to offer. And, he could choose to go play with LeBron and Anthony Davis. So there's a lot of different ways that can go. But Matt, everybody's just frustrated because, and we'll get an explanation. I assume we'll get an explanation from, either Mark Cuban or Donnie Nelson after this all settles down. But it just kind of felt like they were just caught off guard, because before free agency even got started, and I think I told you about this too, but Brad Townsend, he had tweeted out before the buzzer rang and free agency was underway that he had heard from an NBA general manager that things were going to move slowly. The market was going to move slowly, waiting for the bigger guys to make their decisions. Well, I mean, I'm assuming that that's Donnie. I mean, I'm just speculating. I'm not saying that for sure, but I'm going to assume that was their thinking on this. And, I mean, it makes sense if it was, because, they thought the market was going to move slow. It didn't. There were probably 50 names come off the free agency board the first day, or the first night, because it started at 5 p.m. last Sunday. So there were a lot of people go off the board. It just, as far as second tier free agents, it seems like Danny Green was one of their most highly prioritized. I just don't know. I don't know if it's them not doing their homework or it's just really bad luck that Green is so tied to Kawhi's hip. I don't know. I'll get your thoughts on it, but to me, I kind of think it's bad luck. 'Cause, I mean, what could they do? Could they even throw $20 million a year at Green right now and get a decision?
I mean, look, I think it's a case of them being unprepared. I think it's a case of them being hoodwinked a little bit. I think it's a case of them being overconfident in what they could offer in terms of not necessarily money, but in terms of what people thought of what stage of their rebuild they were in. It's just a whole combination of different things. And I don't, going back to what you said earlier, I don't expect to get a real explanation for any of this. I expect to get a PC explanation about making it look like
lipstick
they're
on a pig.
Exactly, making themselves out to be the victim of some terrible bad luck or something like that. It's what we get every time something like this happens. And look, I don't know what their plan was, how highly prioritized certain free agents were over others. I've heard stories that you've heard as well that I don't necessarily believe that you might. I've heard a whole bunch of different things. What bothers me the most is that there was essentially what Brad said about it was going to move slowly. And it sounds like that was Donnie based off what happened, because they just got completely caught with their pants down. People were flying off the board, and they were sitting out at dinner with Kristaps Porzingis while these, which is fine. It's fine, by the way, let me make something clear. It's fine to get your guys symbolically agreed to first so they feel special and they feel like they matter, which is important. You want your guys to make it feel like, they're your guys. But on the first day of free agency, when you're in the middle of a rebuild, you don't go out to dinner while everybody else is signing free agents. You don't. It's ridiculous. And that's allegedly what happened. So
this might be a dumb statement to make, but could you imagine if they didn't get the memo, or they got an email and overlooked it or something about when free agency was supposed to start this year? Instead of 5 p.m. or whatever, they're still thinking it's closer to midnight. Going out to dinner with Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, how bad would that be?
That would explain a lot.
I don't think that's the case, but I'm
I don't either.
Here.
I'm just saying, I don't know what went wrong. I don't think we'll ever find out exactly what went wrong. They didn't prioritize things correctly, in my opinion.
Right.
It sounds to me like they got the rug ripped out from them on one particular guy here or there, and then they have themselves stuck waiting in this Danny Green situation, which is, quite frankly, one of the most absurd situations I've ever seen in NBA free agency. it's one thing to wait for your friend or your buddy to sign somewhere, and because you're going to ride his coattails and go wherever he goes. But the way this, and we're going to get more into this later, I'm sure, but like the way this whole podcast guy thing is going with his high school friend,
yes,
feeding out all this ridiculous information that I don't buy any of.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
In the way that he's sitting around waiting for Kawhi because I still don't get it. Like, be a man and make your own decision and be where you want to be. I mean, we really don't even know if the Mavericks are the best offer. We don't know that. We assume that based off this idiot podcast guy, but we don't know that for sure. It sounds to me like he is afraid to make his own choice because if Kawhi stays in Toronto, he just wants to go back to Toronto where he's safe and they're probably going to win another championship next year. If Kawhi goes to the Lakers, then he's like, well, it just sounds like he has no decision-making process of his own. It's like a college commitment ceremony. I made this comparison earlier on Twitter. It's like he's going to sit on Instagram Live at a table with 3 hats that say, a Mavericks hat, a Lakers hat, and a Raptors hat, and just put one on and everybody's going to celebrate, and that's how he's going to make his announcement. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's just a tough situation for the Mavs to be in because the top 2 free agents left on the board right now, I think we're on day, let's see, it's the 4th and it started on the 3rd. So this is technically day 5 of free agency. And the best 2 players available are Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green. And there's a pretty significant drop-off from Kawhi Leonard to Danny Green. So, and then after Danny Green, you have Marcus Morris and, I really don't know who else. Without looking at the list, I mean, it's so dwindled.
DeLon Wright.
Yeah, DeLon Wright. We know, that's another thing that Brad Townsend reported a couple hours ago that the Mavs are considering presenting him with an offer sheet, which, I mean, in your opinion, do you think that could be a way of, like, trying to nudge Danny Green to make a decision?
No. I saw, was it Blake Ware on Twitter said that? And I get the idea of that, but I mean, what's that gonna do to Danny Green? It's hey, if you don't sign with us, we're gonna offer this other backup guy, way less money, and he doesn't even play the same position as you, but it's fine, just you need to hurry up because we're gonna offer this guy that has nothing to do with you.
Well, my thinking on the situation is, I don't think you want to pull the offer from the table. I mean, since he's the second best free agent left on the board, they have no choice. It's unfortunate how they got to this point, but they really don't have any choice at this point. They have to, wait it out. As grueling as it is, they have to wait it out and see what he chooses to do. But, if the Mavs were to pull his offer and say it's just a bidding war between the Raptors and the Lakers, well, I mean, the Raptors are probably not going to pay him near as much as the Lakers, but the Lakers are probably going to get him for probably a bargain deal if the Mavs aren't bidding against them, is my thinking on it. So I'm just wondering if there's any way, whether it's, maybe Mark Cuban needs to up the offer a little bit. Make his decision that much harder. Press him to where he can't wait for Kawhi Leonard anymore. It's like, okay, there's a ton of money here. These guys really want me. I'm not their second choice. Between all these other teams chasing me right now, I'm their top priority. I'm having to wait to see if these people are prioritizing me or not. Do something to make his decision even that much tougher. Because I don't know, if Kawhi drags this out a couple more days, I don't know if Green's going to wait on him. But
he shouldn't be waiting for him in the first place.
Well,
it's absurd. But what's also kind of absurd and really frustrating is that, like, we agree on this. Danny Green is a C plus free agent signing, just on paper by himself, right?
Yeah.
Yet we're all waiting on pins and needles because the addition of Danny Green to Seth Curry and everything else they've done this summer with retaining Dorian and Dwight and Kristaps and Maxey, it makes for a pretty compelling starting lineup, a really good shooting starting lineup. So adding him to the lineup could be the difference between 10 or 12 wins. Yet at the same time, he's a C level free agent. It's going to make or break the whole summer for Danny Green.
I don't
and
think
that's just it's for me. It is, unless they go out and make a trade. If they go in, he's off the table and they sign DeLon Wright.
I'm giving Danny Green a B or a B minus for a free agent, because if he wasn't waiting on Kawhi Leonard, he wouldn't be on the board right now. He would have been one of those guys that signed with somebody on day one. It's not like he's left over because he's not good. That's not the case. He's just left over because he's waiting on this other guy, before he makes his decision. And I understand, his preferences there, because if Kawhi stays in Toronto, you just went through something with your teammates, you won a championship. Why wouldn't he want to go back and try to defend his title? So I get that. The Lakers thing, it wouldn't be my preference. Obviously, I'm biased, but I kind of get that too. He fits more in line with LeBron and Anthony Davis's timeline than he does the Mavs, and but he would be a really good fit in Dallas, and he'd get a lot of open looks with Luka. Like I said, I consider him if I had to give him a grade, he'd be a B for on the free agency list, because he shot 45% from three last season. He's a good defender. He was inconsistent a lot last year, but he's still really good. I'd be fine with the Mavs giving him anything, up to anywhere between $15 to $17 million a year if it's on a short deal at this point. So, well, that's where I'm at. I don't blame him for wanting to, see all of his options to the fullest. But at some point, it's got to be embarrassing for the Mavs, because you're just throwing yourself at this guy, and you've been patient. And, at some point, at what point does it become bad business? At what point does Mark Cuban say, okay, dude, we really want you here, but we're starting to get the feeling, or we feel like that feeling isn't mutual. So when do we get to that point?
I think it should have already happened. I think they should have already turned the page, and they should have by now tried to make another trade, whether it's for Andre Iguodala or I can't even mention the other guy's name right now.
Yeah, Matt might start crying if we talk about Dragic a little bit. Dragic, sorry.
It's Dragic, but yes.
Is it Dragic?
It's Dragic.
As long as we've been doing this, you'd think I'd remember that by now. I'll apologize to all of our...
I still mess it up in my head sometimes.
I apologize to all of our European listeners out there. I screw that up a lot.
Anyway, they should have turned the page by now, because at this point they're just starting to look like pushovers. Like they're just like the fans. It seems like they're basing their entire summer off of what Danny Green decides, which on paper is ridiculous. And, I get he was sort of inconsistent in the playoffs, but the guy shot almost 46% from three for the year. So, on paper, he's an excellent fit. He's a good defender. It's just, you can't keep... What's the analogy I'm looking for here? It doesn't matter. You can't just keep your. You can't just hamstring yourself to Danny Green and call it a summer. Like, how long are they going to let this go on? They can't keep. They can't keep doing this.
And that's the thing. Like I said earlier, I don't know if they just didn't contact Danny Green beforehand to see what his intentions were before they decided to, prioritize him the way they have.
Which is a huge red flag.
I know. The whole process is the problem because, we've talked so much about Kemba Walker in the past, and a guy close to the situation I've talked to has told me that that was pretty much a done deal for the Mavs until Al Horford opted out, which I know you're kind of skeptical of that, but I believe that. I believe that we were set to get Kemba Walker this summer until Al Horford got this this huge guaranteed offer, which turned out to be the 76ers, and that ended that for the Mavs. Past Kemba Walker, though, I don't know that they had thought too much about what order they wanted to go in, because after the Walker stuff ended, we spent a ton of time talking about, writing about at DallasBasketball.com about Patrick Beverley. And the fan base was infatuated with Patrick Beverley. He became like a cult hero, and he wasn't even here yet. And as it turns out, they didn't even highly prioritize him. So,
which is, again, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, as much as we talked about him being a perfect fit, and I think it was Tim McMahon that reported that there was mutual interest there, and that Billy Duffy thought he'd be a perfect fit alongside Luka, and there was all that talk going on. Well, for all that, they obviously didn't view him as much of a fit as what was being portrayed, or what we were talking about. And I don't know what else to say about it, Matt. It's mind-boggling to me that they wouldn't want a guy like that, given where they are as far as total talent goes on their roster.
I want to touch on the Kemba thing real quick. How do I put this? I believe that the person that told us about that was told that. Like, I believe that he was told that. What I don't believe is that he was told the truth.
Where else was he going, Matt?
I don't know, Dalton, but I don't believe that he was told the truth. I think that whoever told him that was trying to save face.
Well,
because
he wasn't going back to Charlotte. We know that.
Given the relationship with the agent that was supposedly ironclad, for Al Horford simply opting out to change an already handshook supposedly agreement is very hard for me to believe.
Well,
but
again, as much as we want to push the agent narrative, which I believe in, I think they absolutely have some influence
to a certain point. Yes.
To a certain degree. Throughout that entire process, we never heard from Kemba himself what team he preferred. But after the fact, when he did choose Boston, he mentioned that it gave him a better shot of making the playoffs.
And another reason it's hard for me to believe is because the Mavericks never even got an official meeting. So you didn't even get a chance to be like, well, hey, I get you're starting to change your mind a little bit, but let me tell you why you should stick to your commitment.
Well,
or supposed commitment.
I think they knew about this before we got to that point. Like, I think as soon as we found out that Al Horford was opting out, it was like less than 24 hours later when Mark Stein reported that the Celtics had become a stealth suitor for Kemba Walker, and then it just really snowballed from there. But at that point, I think the Mavs had probably had probably talked to Schwartz at some point and got a feel for it. And as much as Schwartz might have wanted to steer him in a certain direction, if Kemba wanted to stay on the East Coast and in the Eastern Conference and, still be the guy in an offensive system, that's totally his decision. And I mean, I understand that too, but my point was, as far as the playoff thing goes, that's not the same team that it's been the last couple of years. You lost Al Horford, you lost Kyrie Irving, which some people view that as a addition by subtraction. You lost Marcus Morris, Aaron Baines, and who else did they lose? Terry Rozier. So you lost 2 starters and you lost 3 key contributors on the bench, all for Kemba. So that's five players for 1. I don't think that's going to be the same team that it's been the last few years. Like they might struggle to even get in that 6, 7, 8 spot in the East. So
I don't agree. I think they're going to be just fine.
You think they're going to be just as good?
I didn't say just as good. I said just fine. They still have Gordon Hayward. They still have Marcus Smart. They still have Jason Tatum. They still have Jaylen Brown. I mean, if they could find just like some sort of just some player who can kind of do some of the things that Al Horford did, I think Kemba's going to be, like you said with Kyrie, addition by subtraction. I don't think he's a better player than Kyrie, but I think that he's going to mesh in better with that environment. And they were a really deep team. I think Terry Rozier is trash. Marcus Morris, okay, he's fine, but like, how much is that really going to impact things? Aaron Baines, whatever. You can find another backup big. I think when it came down to it, he's an East Coast guy. Maybe he likes the idea of playing for a franchise like Boston. But at the same time, going back to what you said a couple minutes ago, if they did know about it ahead of the deadline, then the fact that they didn't prioritize other players like Malcolm Brogdon and Bojan Bogdanovic and Patrick Beverly, I mean, it's ridiculous. And the formula they should have followed is the Utah Jazz formula, because the Utah Jazz, in what seemed like 24 hours, I think it was a little bit longer, but they went from a middling Western Conference team to they're going to be one of the favorites in the West next year. And they look awesome on paper, and the Mavericks should have followed that formula, but they didn't do it, and now they're going to regret it because all they have left is scraps and Danny Green. Yeah.
Well, I want to touch on that point about the prioritizing deal. I have another theory that I want to throw out there, and then we'll talk about a couple of other signings the Mavs have made that weren't their own guys. But first, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a little bit. Hang with us. All right, guys, we're back. We've been discussing the Dallas Mavericks free agency period, and we've been questioning how they've prioritized things, and it's just for a summer that had so many positive outcomes. Like if you put it out on paper and you looked at what was there and you looked at the money that was out there with some of these teams, you figured, okay, something good is going to happen for the Mavs. And they just, I don't know, they just didn't prioritize some of the guys that we thought they should, and they kept their own players for the most part. Signed Porzingis to a 5-year max deal. I'd forgotten what it was like to have a player locked up on a long-term contract. I mean, it feels out of all the bad stuff that's gone on these last few days, that's a pretty good feeling to have him, for the next 5 seasons. And Luka, you figure he's going to be around for at least 6-7 more years. And then they re-signed Maxi Kleba. They gave Powell a 3-year extension on top of his expiring 1 year on his contract he has now. So he's here for 4 years.
Excellent deals on both of those guys, by the way. Excellent.
Very,
deals.
Very good, very valuable deals. Then Dorian Finney-Smith, I believe that was 4 years, $12 million. So that was another value signing. I mean, they did a good job with the in-house contracts, and even if they don't keep all those guys, well, they're obviously going to keep Porzingis if everything goes according to plan. But the other guys, if there was to be a big trade opportunity come up in the near future, those are very movable deals, and and they're valuable deals, and I think other teams will see that too. So that was good. And then as far as players that weren't Mavericks already, Seth Curry, they signed him. That's another value deal in my opinion. It's 4 years, $32 million.
Excellent shooter.
Excellent shooter, just like we talked about with Danny Green earlier. He shot 45% from 3 last year. He's really good with the ball.
Second in the NBA. Second in the NBA,
yes,
ahead of his big brother.
Yes, he's ahead of Steph in 3-point percentage. He's good with the ball in his hand. He's good running the pick and roll. So I think that's a really, really good signing for the Mavs. I was actually surprised that they got him back because Matt, as you know, we had heard that he left for personal reasons 2 years ago, and apparently those got resolved, and he's back. So that's great.
Yeah.
I think
I was shocked.
Yeah, I think he'll work a lot better alongside Luka than he did with Dennis Smith Jr. So that'll be, I think that's going to be nice. And then this one isn't as big as the Curry signing. Well, I take it back. Physically, yes, it is a lot bigger than the Curry signing, but we got Boban. We got the 7'3" Boban. I don't even know how to say his last name. Marjanovic.
Marjanovic. Yeah. I'm like, okay. I've been kind of making fun of it a little bit.
Man, I cannot wait.
Because I'm frustrated.
You can go on with your point here in a second, but I just want to throw this out there. I cannot wait for Media Day this year. That is going to be some of the funniest pictures with Boban and JJ Barea.
I know. I'm really looking forward to that. But I've been kind of poking fun at it today on Twitter because it's like, okay, congratulations. We've signed Seth Curry, which is a very good value signing, and a guy who plays 11 minutes a game and in 40 minutes or 40 games a year. So it's like, okay, big deal. But dude, I'm telling you, this is pretty. I think it's, if you're a basketball guy or girl, you're pretty familiar with this by now. His per 100 possession numbers are absolutely astronomical.
Oh,
it
yeah.
It is hysterical how good they are.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't play a lot, but he's effective, man. He can play ball.
Yeah, he would have qualified for top 15 in PER, or had he qualified, he would have been top 15 in PER. When he was in, I believe it was Philly, he was. Let me look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure it was when he was in Philly. He per 100 possessions, he averaged 30 points and like 19 rebounds, and his offensive rating was like 125, which is one of the best in the NBA. I mean, he's basically a walking meme.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was with the Clippers that he averaged 30 and 19. It was 30 and 7. No, wait, hold on. Yeah, 30 and 19, and then again in Philly he was 28 and 18. Sorry. So, I mean, he's a walking meme, but it's going to be a lot of fun. At least.
And look, he's not. That's not a huge signing as far as like getting the fans excited. Which I mean, I don't know. I saw a bunch of people that were really excited just because he seems like a really nice, funny dude. So just from that standpoint, I saw a lot of people excited. But like you said, he doesn't play a lot, but he's really effective when he does go in there. He's a brute. So, if you have a tough defensive assignment, dunk
without jumping.
He can dunk without jumping. He can block shots. He can rebound. Knowing how Rick Carlisle likes to do that center by committee thing that he does, I think he's going to fit in really well. And I'll say this: Boban is a lot better than Salah Mejri. I'm going to say that. So
yes.
It's a minor upgrade, but it's an upgrade nonetheless.
I think it's more than minor, but I mean he's effectively going to take Salah's place on the roster.
Right.
So I don't know how Luka feels about that, but at a certain point, you got to grow up and make new friends.
Yeah. Well, he's got Kristaps now, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Well, yes. Anyway, both of those signings are fine. It's just, man, at a certain point you have to stop playing it safe. And when we're going to get back into prioritizing these guys, you really have to think to yourself, had they known about the Kemba stuff ahead of time, which I think it's reasonable to assume that they did, they still weren't prepared for it, and they should have been prepared for it, and they should have put an offer sheet in on Malcolm Brogdon.
And this is another thing too. I don't even know how I should word this, so I'm not going to say too much about it. But they were never interested in Brogdon. Not to the point to where, like Fish said, they were just waiting and seeing. I think that was them saying they're waiting to see if he falls through the cracks, so to speak. And that's mainly because of his medical. I've heard that he the medical stuff is what has scared people off. So
yeah, his foot is made of chalk basically, but at the same time, you had to do something. You had to try. You had to take risks at this free agency period if you wanted to get where they think they're supposed to be, and they didn't take any risks whatsoever.
Well, and I've said this before too. Before we even got started in this free agency period, this is another one of my theories that I was talking about before we took the break. But before we even got started here, I said that if the Mavs didn't land a big fish, one of the Plan K guys that we've talked about so much at DallasBasketball.com, that I thought they would focus.
Rest in peace, by the way.
Yeah, R.I.P. to that, and R.I.P. to my Plan B. That died quickly. But if they didn't get a big fish this year, I always thought they were going to try and be more conservative. So I didn't think they'd want to sign people to 4-year deals, which we saw a lot of. We saw it with Bojan Bogdanovic. We saw it with Julius Randle. He got like a 3-year, $60 million deal in New York. See, like stuff like that. I couldn't see the Mavs doing that this summer. Not for players like that. And they're good. And, good for them for getting their money and everything. But I always kind of figured that if they didn't get a big guy, a big fish this year, that they were going to try and go with cheaper, shorter deals. And
that's fine, but they haven't even done that.
Which
is frustrating.
They have with Seth Curry. That was a value deal. He's, like you said, he's the second.
It's a 4-year deal.
Yeah, but it's not a back-breaking deal. It's not paying, what is that, like $8 million a year?
Yeah, it's $8 million a year.
Yeah,
I
mean,
depending on how they structure it. But
yeah,
yes.
I mean, that's doable. If they get to a point where they need to shed that's not going to be hard. You know how hard it's going to be for New York if they have to trade Julius Randle making $20 million a year for the next 3 years?
About as hard as it's going to be for the Mavericks to trade Tim Hardaway Jr.
Right. Maybe not that hard, but I mean, it's going to be pretty hard for them to do it. So, I mean, it's a value deal, and that's what they're looking for. And I think Danny Green, like we talked about, I think they have the best offer put forward right now, but we don't know how much it is. Or, you know, for all we know, I think Tim McMahon pointed out that deal for Danny Green was somewhere in the 3-year, $36 million range. So since that number was thrown out there, I mean, do we assume that that's the offer that's on the table from the Mavs?
I would up it to 3 years and 45, and if he doesn't take that, I would tell him to take a hike.
Well, see, and that's why I'm wondering just how much they're offering, because I don't know if the Mavs would want to go 3 years, $45 million right now. In the back of my mind, I just have this feeling that they're eyeing free agency in 2021. And I know
if that's the case, that is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I know. I was going to say there's probably a collective groan out there with a bunch of y'all listening, and I know you probably are too, Matt, but that's just what I'm thinking. I think they're looking forward and they're saying, okay, the Bucks, they're already capped out. They just gave Chris Middleton I think it was $178 million over 5 years contract. If they can't get over the hump in these next 2 years and Giannis decides to weigh his options, Luka and Porzingis, they will have played 2 seasons together. They'll be established, and hopefully they will have had at least 2 playoff appearances by then. So I'm wondering if they're trying to position themselves to make a play that summer. Because if you sign a bunch of 4-year deals and you're really loose with the money and it's not value signings, it's going to be hard contracts to move, you kind of take yourself out of that possibility going forward. So I understand that, but like you said, you'd like them to at least sign one impact guy, somebody that could be your third best player with Luka and Kristaps Porzingis next season. Even if you do have to overpay a little bit, that doesn't mean you have to do it for everybody, but just one guy.
Okay. The reason I hate that idea is because, one, you're mortgaging your entire future on what Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to do in 2 years.
Right.
Which is not a good way to go about things. Number two, as we've learned, I think in the last couple of days, you may disagree, but I've seen people say this on Twitter, and I have come to agree with it very strongly. Cap space is the most overrated asset in the NBA.
No, that the talk on Twitter you're talking about, that probably came from me. I was saying yesterday that we just saw it here recently with the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. Miami was capped out. Jimmy Butler decided, hey, I want to go to Miami and I want y'all to give me a max contract. Next thing you know, there's a sign and trade, and they've made it happen.
That's why when you say, be conservative with the money and don't play fast with the money, it's like, okay, well, at a certain point, you're going to have to spend the money anyway, so you might as well do something with it. And if Giannis still wants to come in 2021, then he's still going to come. You just have to move pieces, and you can make it happen. Everybody can make it happen. If Miami can make it happen with them being pick-starved and having a bunch of trash on their roster that couldn't make the playoffs in the East, or could barely make the playoffs. I don't even remember if they made it. They were so bad.
No,
I don't think
they
they
did.
Yeah, it was Orlando that made it. So they can't even make the playoffs in the East. Yet they can still somehow ship off pieces here and there and three-way trades and get Jimmy Butler. I mean, and by the way...
It was Detroit that made it, by the way. I just looked that up. That's pretty bad.
Well, Orlando made the playoffs too. But, by the way, it's not just the free agency stuff that has me all pissed off. It's the way they completely bumbled that trade. And it's not just because it was for my unicorn in Dragic.
I wouldn't call him a unicorn, Matt, but I guess
No,
for
my
you
unicorn.
he is.
My unicorn. It's not just because it was for him, which, I mean, Dalton, when I saw that first come through on Twitter, I almost had a heart attack out of happiness. I was so
I believe
excited.
you.
I thought I had spoken it into existence.
You guys should see. You guys should see
ripped away from me.
All of you listening should see Matt and me and Matt's text exchange when we thought that trade went through. He was losing. I should screenshot that and post it.
And then you should see what I said afterwards.
He went from elated to complete depression in a matter of like 2 minutes. It was something.
I was the Ralph Wiggum heartbreak gif. I mean, it was ridiculous, but the fact that you thought you were trading for these two guys, and Miami thought you were trading for somebody else, and there's a miscommunication on who the trade is supposed to be for, is one ridiculous part of it. That is absolutely ridiculously embarrassing. I mean that happens. That shouldn't happen to a team with Donnie Nelson as the GM. That happens to teams like the Wizards who don't have a fucking GM. Like, that is so embarrassing.
Well, they said, and there was some speculation that said, well, they backed out of the trade because they something else came up. And
I don't believe that because nothing happened.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Nothing has happened, so obviously that wasn't the case. I think it was just a misunderstanding about who they were getting. And, do we even really know for sure? I mean, people have speculated on it, but do we know for sure if they wanted Dragic or Olynyk and Derek Jones Jr.? Do we know who they actually wanted? Because it sounded like they wanted Olynyk.
The report was that Miami thought they were shipping Dragic, and Dallas thought they were getting Olynyk and Derek Jones Jr., which also, why in the hell would you want to do that? Why would you take on a 3-year Olynyk deal when you can take on a 1-year Dragic deal that if it doesn't work out, you say, all right, it's not, sorry, it didn't work. We have $19 million in overrated cap space left. But then, like, the other report comes out that, Miami didn't want to part with Derek Jones Jr. Like, get the hell out of here. Are you kidding me? Derek Jones Jr., the guy that can't do anything but dunk?
Yeah.
And you don't want to part with him to help yourself land Jimmy Butler? I don't believe any of that.
Yeah.
What I believe is that there was a miscommunication on who is getting who, and then they realized, oh, wait, we just agreed to get Olynyk and Derek Jones Jr. What the hell are we doing? And then they backed out of it, and now they look like idiots, and they're just going to have to face it.
Well,
it's just another thing that they did wrong. And what's so frustrating is that this all happened within like a few hours.
Well, I'm going to move away from the Miami thing, but I'm going to still talk about trades. But even look at what the Golden State Warriors had to do to make room to sign D'Angelo Russell to his max deal there. They had to shed Andre Iguodala, and they shipped him to the Memphis Grizzlies and gave the Grizzlies a first-round pick to take Iguodala. And then now it's being talked about that, there might be a buyout or the Grizzlies might be trading Iguodala, and the Mavs are interested in Iguodala. Why didn't the Mavs take Iguodala and the pick from the Warriors? What
exactly?
What is the line of thinking there? Do they not want him for the price that he was at, and they're hoping he gets bought out and he chooses Dallas? Because if that's the case, he's probably choosing Houston.
And you don't want the I know it's the Warriors, and a first-round pick with the Warriors is basically an early second-round pick, but that's still an asset.
Yeah.
Why would you not just be like, oh, hey, yeah, we'll do that?
And we don't know what the Warriors are going to be like that year. So I mean,
and then if you want to buy him out, you can buy him out. Like even if you want to just do it for the pick, but now they're talking about how they might. We're hearing reports that they might trade for Iguodala, and like they're gonna have to give up some sort of asset of some kind to land him.
It's just
so you're
dumb.
going from potentially getting a first round pick to take on a guy who can help you a lot, to getting rid of an asset to get a guy who you could have had earlier. The Knicks have had a more sensical offseason than the Mavericks have.
I still don't like their offseason, and I still think they got completely pantsed on the Porzingis deal, considering what they did this summer to where their expectations were. But I do agree that they've done more than the Mavs, and that's really not saying much because, like I said, I don't really like the collection of talent that they got.
Well, I don't either.
For the money that they paid them, but
what I'm saying is they were smart in this sense. They realized they didn't have a chance at Kevin Durant, that he was going to Brooklyn. So they were just like, all right, screw it. We're gonna go scoop up everybody else that we can, and we're gonna try and put together a competitive roster. And they got some decent players. They got Julius Randle, and they got a bunch of power forwards, which I don't know how that's going to work
Gibson.
Out. And they found out that when I first saw this, I was just like, oh my God, they're so stupid. But looking back on it, they got wind that they weren't gonna be top of the line list for Kawhi, so they canceled the meeting. It's like, look, if you don't want to be here and we're your fifth choice, then we're not going to waste our time with it. We're gonna look another direction because we're trying to get better as soon as we can, and just develop the young guys that we have and put them with real professional good players and see what we can make out of it. And that's better than sitting on your hands and doing nothing for the first 6 days of free agency. Which is what they're going to end up doing, because Kawhi's not going to sign and make a decision until after July 6th. I'm telling you, I can feel it. And then as soon as we hang up, it's going to be like Kawhi Leonard decides to, go to Europe.
He's decided to just quit the NBA altogether. He's
going to go play soccer in China.
But look, we're obviously, either one of us, and there's a lot of you guys listening that are very disappointed with how this offseason has gone, and it's understandable. But like I said, it could be worse as far as maybe not signing your in-house guys and not getting a Curry or a Boban. You could just get nothing, and I guess it could be worse. So, but it is pretty bad, and I don't know. As much as I love the Mavs, as much as I really respect the front office and everything, there was just something went wrong here. And we don't know exactly what it was. We assume it was the way they decided to prioritize players after they found out that Kemba was off the board. But I don't know. Matt. I know there's still ways that they could salvage this offseason, but it looks pretty bleak right now. They haven't done anything, and obviously that's because they're waiting on Danny Green. And
can we talk about the podcast guy for a little bit?
Yeah, let's do that. Before we actually talk about Danny Green's podcast co-host, which is Harrison, and I forget his last name. What's his last name?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Okay. But before, we'll talk about that a little bit. Danny Green and his co-host, they have this podcast called The Green Line, and they released an episode today, and we thought, well, maybe he's making a decision before Kawhi does. Well, that wasn't the case. So they basically hyped everybody up, and it was more of nothing. But here's what Danny Green had to say on his podcast today as it related to the Mavs. So he says the LA teams are in contention. they're the ones that reached out and shown the most interest, and Dallas. He said, I've known Mark Cuban and Rick Carlisle for some time. They have really, really good interest in me, and they're showing it. And they're coming in pretty strong. LA's coming on pretty strong. But LA's waiting on Kawhi. And Toronto is waiting on Kawhi. And then he goes on to say, the Mavs have a good team and a good foundation. I can be another good piece to that puzzle, hopefully. They have a healthy KP, and Luka is an upcoming star and other good pieces surrounding it. If I was there, I think we could turn it around and make it a playoff team. So, Danny Green has he's saying all the right things when it comes to the Mavs, but, you know, if he really thought it was that good of a situation and they're giving him a bunch of money and he's their first priority right now, why hasn't he signed with them?
Because, I mean, do you want my opinion on that?
Yeah. Just go ahead and give your opinion, and you can go ahead and talk about what you were wanting to talk about in regards to his co-host.
Okay, because I think his co-host is full of shit. I think this whole thing is, well, I mean, if you think about it, there isn't another free agent in the last however many years you want to go back that is letting one of their high school friends, who's not their agent, who's not their manager, go out there and just put all of his priorities and everything that he's thinking out on the internet and out on social media. That doesn't happen. These things happen behind closed doors. That's why what Woj does is so absolutely insane, is because nobody knows these things except the people having the meetings. Because you don't want something leaked that maybe, so say you're the Mavericks. You don't want Toronto to know what your offer is. You don't want all these things of your negotiating tactics and what you're telling Danny out on social media for everybody to see. You want that stuff to be private. And the fact that he's just out there spewing all of this makes me not believe any of it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no sense to it except this one thing, and that's he's trying to grow his own brand and increase his following, and he's doing this to all four fan bases that are chasing Danny Green.
Yeah, the Harrison guy, he and he went on the Ben and Skin show a couple days ago and said a lot of basically what Danny Green said on his podcast today. So it wasn't anything new, but he did say a lot of nice things about Dallas and this and that. So he went on there, so more people found out about him through that. I've been looking at it, Matt. That guy has gained about 1,500 followers since Sunday.
I know, because and it's absurd.
Well, actually Monday. I didn't even know about the guy until Monday, I don't think.
Yesterday he was saying, oh, well, Kawhi, or he might not wait for Kawhi to make a decision. The offer from Dallas is so good or whatever that, he may just decide to do something
right.
on his own.
And then he completely flipped it.
And then today it's, oh, well, he's definitely waiting for Kawhi now. And it's just like, dude, why hasn't Danny Green just said, Harrison, none of what you're saying is true, and I get what you're doing, but shut up. You're making me look like a drama queen, and just shut up.
Well, it's Danny Green's podcast too, man. I mean, he's
why I'm
part
so
of
shocked.
it. He's part of it, so he's perfectly fine with all of this too. And we've talked about this through text and on Twitter and everything, but it's actually a really good business strategy. It sucks that the Mavs are being used as leverage as a part of it, but
from a marketing standpoint, it's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, they're getting tons of listens and followers and everything, and everybody's plugged into what the Green Line is saying. So, kudos to them for doing it. It sucks to be on the wrong end of that. And I'm gonna say this, and then I'll let you finish out on this topic. But on that podcast today, he also said, Danny Green, that is, he said, Mark Cuban's a strong bidder. He's putting the pressure on me to make a decision soon. So that was the first we had heard, and that's another reason why I was wondering if maybe reports of the Mavs starting to make offers to other players like DeLon Wright, maybe that's a way, that Cuban is trying to nudge him a little bit, because he mentioned it, that Cuban's pressuring him to make a decision soon. So obviously the Mavs are tired of waiting. They've been really, really patient with the guy. Again, this is day 5 of free agency. So they've let all these other players pass them by. They've thrown themselves at Danny Green, and it's still doing nothing. So I can imagine there's some frustration on their end too, and they're probably getting to the point where it's like, okay, Danny, you need to either take this offer or you need to not take the offer, but we need to know something now. So I think we're very, very quickly approaching that point, whether Kawhi decides anytime soon or not.
Oh, yeah, and he'll make his decision one way or the other, and it's going to be really embarrassing and really frustrating when all of these people, and I was skeptical of not necessarily of Danny's interest in the Mavericks, but I was skeptical of this Harrison Sanford, whatever his name is. I was skeptical of him and what he was doing the entire time. And I told you and Fish that. Like, why I texted you all that in a group chat, like, from the very beginning. Why is this guy out here spilling all of Danny's business?
I'm gonna get you a trophy for that one day, by the way.
Well, I'm not building myself up because of that.
I'm just playing with you.
I'm just saying, like, it's going to be super frustrating and super embarrassing for everybody who got invested in that, and especially for the Mavericks when they find out all of this was for leverage and that they got left at the altar again, except this time it's not going to be a DeAndre Jordan in his prime or Dwight Howard or Darren Williams or
right. It's for 32. It's for 32-year-old Danny Green.
That's for a 32-year-old rotational role player.
Yeah, that's what, to me, that's what I think is probably getting on the Mavs' nerves right now. As patient as they've been, as long as they've waited, the offer they've put forward, and they've prioritized this guy that, is at best a third man, and he's getting to the point where he's probably like your 4th or 5th. He should be your 4th or 5th best starter, but it's getting to the point now where it's like, man, I mean, we're not waiting 5 days for Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant. We're waiting 5 days for Danny Green. So,
yeah.
So I mean, that's really frustrating. It definitely feels like the Mavs have been being used for leverage right now, but it's not over yet. We don't know. We might be coming on here in the next 24 to 48 hours doing an emergency pod because, they got Danny Green and they did a trade to help Toronto unload Serge Ibaka or something like that, like we've talked about on Twitter.
One of my favorite trade ideas, by the way.
Absolutely. That's one of the best ones I've seen so far. Love that. But we'll find out more in the coming hours. There was a report from Chris Carter who when he played football, he had the same agent as Kawhi Leonard. So he let me see what he reported. Oh yeah, he reported that there wasn't going to be a decision today. It was probably going to come tomorrow. So we will see.
Chris Carter?
Huh?
Chris Carter?
Yeah, Chris Carter.
Okay, can we stop relying on Chris Carter for Kawhi Leonard news? I don't care if they share the same agent.
Well, he's been right so far. I mean,
I would have been right if I said sources close to the situation said nothing's happening today because Kawhi probably doesn't even realize free agency started.
Well, I made my prediction
he's probably just sitting in his basement playing dominoes or fucking Halo on TV or something.
Well, I mean, look, I just hope it. I really do think we're gonna finally reach the end of this wait tomorrow. I think
You told me that yesterday.
I didn't say it like this though, Matt. I really do think I really do think it's gonna come to an end because deals are gonna start being finalized on. Let's see, tomorrow's Friday, so deals will start being officially official on Saturday. And then that's when restricted free agency will get going too. So I definitely think it's going to happen tomorrow. It might happen in the next couple hours tonight for all we know. You never know with Woj. He might be loading the clip right now. So we'll see how it goes. It's been bad so far. We've aired out our frustrations and tried to come up with theories of how we got here, but it's not completely lost yet. There are ways the Mavs can come out of this feeling good about their summer. We just have to wait and see what happens with Kawhi Leonard and then Danny Green, and then we can go from there and see if they try to do anything with trades. So, guys, that's going to do it for another episode of The Step Back. We appreciate y'all coming in and listening to us every week. I'm going to let Matt say a few closing things here in a second, but I wanted to let you guys know that we're going to start selling some t-shirts for the pod, and I'm going to post an updated pic of our t-shirt because as our guy Tyler Adams pointed out to us the other day when we posted a t-shirt concept, he said, I can't wait to wear you got y'all's heads on my nipples. So we got that fixed. We raised the logo up a couple of inches. It looks really good. We'll post that. Send us a DM on Twitter with your size if you're interested in pre-ordering. We haven't determined prices yet. I'm still talking with my guy to see how much it's going to cost us. But if you'll tell me you're interested, send me what size shirt you want. As soon as I find out all that info, I'll let you know, and we'll get you guys some Step Back t-shirts pre-ordered. So keep that in mind going forward.
Send those DMs to @StepBackMavs.
Yes, at StepBackMavs. If you send a DM to Matt, he's probably going to tell you to go to hell. So
I'm not in the mood this week, guys. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal.
Yeah. So don't do that to Matt. Send it to @StepBackMavs. Let us know if you want a t-shirt. Give us your size, and we'll, as soon as I get the price info and all that, I'll let you know, and we'll go from there. So, Matt, anything else?
Checks phone and sees 10 DMs already. No, if you guys want to go check out our Patreon account as well, it's patreon.com/StepBackMavs. We appreciate any sort of contribution you guys want to make there. We're also working on some benefits for y'all for that.
And the t-shirts will be part of that too. So if any, even if you wanted to sign up for like, what is it, Matt? Like $1 a month.
Yeah, it starts at $1 a month, and you can really contribute as much as you want, but it starts at $1 a month. Yeah,
so even if you do that, we're gonna start at least to like the first 10 people that sign up for that. We're gonna give them a couple of t-shirts. So that's one incentive. So that's what I've been thinking about here for a while. The first 10 people to sign up for that, we'll give y'all a t-shirt. Just let us know your size.
Yes, that would be good. And also, we are working very hard over at DallasBasketball.com to bring you all the latest news for all the Mavs signings and re-signings and scoops and rumors that we hear. So if you guys make sure and check us out over there as well. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, and for DallasBasketball.com, I've got a piece that I'm writing to. I don't want to say rationalize because it makes. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to say that the Mavs did a good job with this offseason so far as chasing other free agents, but I am going to write a piece that's just kind of like the sky isn't completely falling, and I'm going to go over how Seth Curry fits into the equation with Luka and Porzingis, and we're going to go from there and continue to bring you the best content we know how, both on the pod and at DallasBasketball.com. And you definitely want to tune in next week too, because we have a very, very big guest coming on. It's going to be great. I'm not going to reveal that right now, but
arguably our biggest guest.
Probably our biggest guest to this point, yes. So
I mean, I'm being facetious. It's definitely our biggest guest.
yeah, he's our biggest guest yet, and you guys are definitely going to want to tune in for that. It's going to be a ton of fun. So again, guys, we appreciate it. Thank you for coming in every week and listening. We hope you have a great 4th of July weekend, and we'll see you next week. Or we might even see you this weekend for an emergency pod. Depends on what the Mavs do. We'll see you guys later.
Champs, defense still coming with the best flow. The master best on the flow. I'm wild, but yeah, I'm the GOAT. This game get cold. Yeah, you might need a coach and friends turn into your foe. But I'ma just roll. Gotta keep rolling your boat. Yeah, I swear I give them hope. I say I'm cleaner than the soap. This time of year proves who will really sink afloat for real. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk at the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk at the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. You know, in this game, it's a lot of grit, you know what I'm saying? Proves who has integrity. Late nights, early mornings, but we all want the trophy at the end of the day. And that's the beauty of this game, because at the end of the day, only the real gonna float, man, for real. You either sink or you float. Only the real gonna float.